Mr. Allen had always been a man of routine. Every morning for 40 years he woke up before the sun, the smell of coffee filling his small kitchen. He pulled on his worn leather boots and headed out to begin his day. His route was more than just streets and houses. It was a tapestry of lives he felt connected to. He knew the families, their stories, their joys and sorrows. Each letter he delivered was a small piece of someone's life. He was a bearer of good news, a harbinger of joy, and sometimes even a messenger of sorrow. But through it all, Mr. Allen found purpose. He found dignity in delivering those precious envelopes. Each one carried a story he felt honored to deliver. He was a small part of something much bigger than himself. His heart swelled with the importance of his task. He was a postman, yes, but he was also a keeper of stories. One chilly Tuesday morning, as Mr. Allen sorted through the day's mail, a faded, dust-covered envelope caught his eye. It was wedged in a corner of his mail truck, seemingly untouched by time. The once vibrant ink had faded. The edges were frayed, but the address label, though barely legible, was still visible. He ran his fingers over the faded inscription. It was addressed to a Mrs. Clara Thompson. The address seemed familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. Intrigued, he turned the envelope over and over in his hands. A strange energy seemed to pulsate from the old letter. The postmark was nearly 40 years old. Mr. Allen felt a chill run down his spine. Why had this letter never been delivered? Where was it all this time? He couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that this letter held a story that needed to be told. He knew he couldn't just throw it away. He had to try to deliver it. He felt a strange sense of responsibility, a pull toward this lost letter and the mystery it held. The address on the letter was barely visible, the street name almost completely faded with time. Mr. Allen decided to start his search at the local library. He found himself drawn to the old city directories, their pages brittle and yellowed with age. He carefully turned each page, his eyes scanning the countless names. Hours turned into days as he meticulously searched for any mention of Clara Thompson. He refused to give up. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he found it. A Clara Thompson listed at an address on Oakwood Drive. His heart raced with anticipation. He hurried out of the library, clutching the faded address in his hand. He knew that Oakwood Drive. It was in a quiet, old part of town. The houses there were grand, but many stood empty now, whispers of a bygone era. Hope swelled in his chest. He prayed that Clara was still there, that after all these years he could right this unknown wrong. He felt like he was on a mission. A race against time to deliver this letter and the untold story it held. Mr. Allen pulled up to the address on Oakwood Drive. The house was a stately Victorian, with a wide porch and a sweeping lawn. It was clear that time had taken its toll on the old house. Paint peeled from the window frames. The garden, once vibrant, was now overgrown. He walked up the creaking steps and rang the doorbell, his heart pounding in his chest. A woman in her late 40s opened the door, her face etched with a quiet sadness. "May I help you?" she asked. "I'm looking for Clara Thompson," Mr. Allen said, holding out the faded envelope. "I have a letter here for her." The woman's eyes welled up. "My mother, Clara, passed away several years ago," she said softly. Mr. Allen felt a pang of disappointment, but the woman continued, "I'm Lily, her daughter. I'm sure she wouldn't want this letter to go undelivered." Mr. Allen felt a strange sense of relief wash over him. Even though Clara was gone, her story, held within that faded envelope, was about to be told. Lily invited Mr. Allen inside. The house was filled with old photographs and antique furniture, each piece whispering stories of a life lived. He explained how he found the letter, his voice filled with a sense of wonder and responsibility. Lily listened intently, her eyes wide with curiosity and a hint of apprehension. She took the letter from Mr. Allen's hand, her fingers tracing the faded ink. The paper felt brittle, like it could crumble at any moment. "This is my father's handwriting," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He died in the war when I was just a baby. I barely remember him." Tears welled up in her eyes. Mr. Allen felt a lump forming in his throat. He watched as Lily carefully opened the envelope, her hands shaking slightly. He wanted to give her privacy, but felt strangely rooted to the spot. This letter, lost for decades, was about to bridge a gap of time. He was a part of this moment, this unexpected reunion between a daughter and her long-lost father.